Hey guys, it's Kevin again for Arrow, Season 3, Episode 19, Broken Arrow, and oh my god, guys, again, best episode of the season. Arrow seems to be topping themselves every episode, and I just love it. And so much shit happened in this episode. So much that I was not thinking was gonna happen, and just, oh my god, guys, I cannot wait for these final four episodes. And honestly, Arrow's becoming a show where you cannot predict what's gonna happen, and I love that about Arrow. I mean, when you can't predict what's going to happen in the show, it just makes the show more intriguing, and I love that. And let's get into this episode because it was absolutely amazing, and I could not wait for this episode, especially because of the amazing cliffhanger that we were left off with. Because if you guys don't remember, Roy ended up turning himself in and said that he was the Arrow and basically put himself in jail to protect Oliver. So we pick up right after that. We see the news reporting that Roy Harper is the Arrow, and at the Starling National Bank, two guards are watching when the lights flicker, and one of them goes to investigate. His flashlight goes out. A man confronts him, blasts him with plasma beams from his eyes, throwing him across the room. The other guard arrives and sees him, runs for the phone, but the intruder kills him. So already, one of the things I love about this episode is that even though the Arrow, is not really the Arrow right now, there is still crime going on in the world, and it's only going to get worse, and you need someone to help them. So obviously they have to do something about it, and I really enjoyed that about this. So at the police station, Lance and his men escort Roy in past the reporters, and inside, Oliver's handcuffed to a chair and tells Lance that he'll sign a full confession, and Laurel arrives and presents Lance with a habeas writ. She explains that the DA won't charge Oliver with the same crime as Roy because Roy has now been charged as the, Arrow, and basically Oliver's innocent now. However, Lance doesn't exactly trust Oliver, and I can understand that. I mean, Lance just really has no idea what to believe right now. And she basically reminds her father that Oliver only confessed to Lance, and Laurel asks if Lance is going to put himself above the law, and Lance tells Oliver that it isn't over as he releases him, and I really like this more, like, tough side of Lance, because again, it's just he's getting all this information at once and he really doesn't know what to believe. I mean, if I was Lance and I didn't know all this stuff about Oliver, I'd be confused, definitely. And he's definitely very confused, and it's really overwhelming him and it's really pissing him off, which is understandable. So once they're alone, Laurel says that she's making sure that Oliver and Roy don't both end up in prison. And basically, the next morning at Palmer Technologies, Ray comes in and finds Felicity working early, and he wonders why she isn't with Oliver and Roy, having worked out that Roy is Arsenal. And Ray then reminds Felicity that when he was at the hospital, he said that he loved her, but tries to play it off and then leaves. And it was kind of a funny scene. He tries to tell her that he didn't really mean it because, of course, she didn't say it back. And we still have that whole thing going on, which I really like this storyline. I mean, it's kind of cheesy, I understand, but it definitely is setting up Olicity. It's just setting up that their relationship, yes, it is a relationship, but it definitely is already starting to crumble. I mean, this episode, you can tell it is, you can just tell it is. So at the station, Oliver visits Roy, and I love this next scene. He basically says that he's saving Oliver's life because basically when Oliver told Roy he was the Arrow, he told Roy that he was saving his life, basically, and now he's saying that he gets to save his life, and he insists that he should be punished for killing the police officer because ever since he did it, he's always, he's never gotten over it, and tells Oliver that the city needs him more, and Roy assures Oliver that he's okay for the first time since he remember what he did under Mirakuru, and I mean, as I said before, if Roy wants to punish himself, I can understand that, but he doesn't need to. It's not his fault. It's the Mirakuru's fault. It was Slade's fault. That's whose fault it was. It was never his fault, and he needs to understand that. So we go back again to 5 years ago, and Mazeo takes Oliver and his family to a safe house ran by an old woman who he once helped and warns that there's nowhere they can run that Argus won't find them, and Oliver says that he's going to confront Amanda, and Mazeo gives him his pass card to the field office. And again, really what this is trying to show is that it's showing that Oliver is used to doing this whole fugitive thing. He's been a fugitive before, he's been above the law before, and I really like seeing that in these flashbacks. They're really intense, but they're really getting really interesting. Especially because the first half of the season, I really was not into the flashbacks, and now I think they're amazing. I love that about this season. So Malcolm arranges a meeting with Oliver and warns that Roz will keep killing, and this is true, this is probably what's going to happen, that Roz is going to keep killing until Oliver accepts his offer. That's basically what Roz is going to do, because of course Roz just wants Oliver to accept his offer, and he suggests that leading the league would be an alternative to what Roz might devise. But Oliver says that he's going to break Roy out of prison. He doesn't care about Roz's offer right now. What he cares about is breaking Roy out of prison because he knows that Roz is going to continue doing things. That's not what he's worried about. He wants to break Roy out of prison because Roy, isn't really the Arrow and he feels terrible about it. So at Verdance, Thea's watching the news when Oliver comes in. He assures his sister that he's going to do everything he can to make it right, and I really enjoyed that scene. I mean, one of the things I really like is that Thea was definitely, she played a huge role in this episode, and Diggle and Felicity come in, and just as the news runs surveillance footage of the bank robber killing the two guards, Oliver asks Felicity to call Star Labs and see if they're tracking metahumans that left Central City, because there were metahumans that left, and Lance comes in with a warrant to search the basement, takes his men downstairs, they break in, Lance and his men find the Arrow's computers and equipment, and the CSU tech gets a match on the fingerprints that they lifted off of the equipment, and Roy basically, Lance warns that they'll make a mistake eventually and promises to be there when it happens. So as the team leaves Verdance, Felicity tells Oliver that she wiped all the prints except for Roy's and moved some of the more sensitive items from his trunk. She reminds him that a metahuman killer is out there, and, obviously they're not really experienced with that, so Diggle warns that, because, they never really had to deal with metahumans. The only metahuman Oliver's had to deal with is the one in Central City with, Barry. He's never really had to deal with a metahuman before, so I kind of like that they have to deal with metahumans now because it's really connecting the two series really well. And Diggle warns that Lance has plainclothes officer following Oliver, and Oliver suggests that they call Barry, which is probably the best thing to do. Barry's experience, but Felicity says that it's not going to happen, that he's way too busy focused on, finding Wells, and he, with the whole Wells investigation, he's just too focused on that. So they can't call Barry. But she said there is someone else that can help, and I love seeing this. I thought this was awesome. They go to Ray's lab, and it makes sense why they want Ray to help. I mean, for two reasons. One, he's really the only guy available. He's really the only person available. Two, he's actually experienced with metahumans because he was just with Barry. So he would know what he's doing, and just seeing what he did with Barry, you could see that he could probably help Oliver. So Ray offers his help. They explain there's a killer metahuman and bring up the bank footage. And Ray's surprised that Oliver's okay with it. He thought Oliver was going to be really upset about it, but I think Oliver's okay with it because he really doesn't have anyone else to turn to, and the best person to turn to is Ray. And he's happy to hear that Oliver wants to team up with him, and I thought that was awesome. I definitely enjoyed that. So, and I was definitely looking forward to that, especially after we saw how good Barry and Ray work together. I'm like, okay, if they work so well together, Oliver and Ray are going to work just as well. And I'm honestly thinking it's going to be a permanent position because of something that happens in this episode, which I will get to. But basically, 5 years ago, Oliver enters Argus, and a soldier comes in behind him. He prepares to shoot Oliver, but a wounded Amanda comes in and kills the man. She explains they've been holding her there for weeks, and then lowers her gun as a gesture of trust. And Amanda explains that General Shrive planned the whole operation to grab the Alpha Omega bioweapon, and he's going to unleash it on Hong Kong, and claim that the Triad mishandled it, removing China as a major military power. Basically, and Sharif and his team have created a vaccine, and Amanda tells Oliver to get as far away from Hong Kong as he can, and hopes that if he makes it, then they'll meet again someday. So, I thought that was a crazy scene, but again, it's just showing how much of a runaway, and how much, hiding Oliver had to do, which I love seeing. So, Thea meets with Roy at the prison, and he says that he told the guards he didn't want to see her, and she asks what's going on, and basically Roy explains that he promised to never lie to her again. And again, he doesn't, and he wants to keep that promise, and basically he refused to tell her why, says that he'll be fine, and of course Thea doesn't know really the whole plan. She's not in on it. Because, the only people that were really in on this plan were Felicity and Diggle. They were the only people that really know what's going on here. So, obviously, he doesn't want to keep another secret from Thea. He wants to be honest with her and just doesn't really want her involved because he won't feel good about himself if he keeps secrets from her. So, Thea wonders if that's a lie, and Roy goes back to his cell, and I really love this scene. It really just shows how much Roy loves Thea, and I love that. So, Thea calls Oliver at Palmer Technology, tells him what happened. Ray had a contact get him resonance scans of the crime scenes, and the radiation obscured the killer's face, so he screens out the radiation footage, and Felicity runs facial recognition and confirms the killer is Jake Simmons, a metahuman bank robber from Central City. And I don't think we've met his character before. I'm pretty sure we haven't. I don't remember Jake Simmons from The Flash. If we have, then cool, but I just don't remember him. So, she spots him on a surveillance camera at a processing plant. Oliver heads out to fight him, and Ray objects, pointing out that Oliver wasn't supposed to be seen as a vigilante, which That's not true. That is exactly what Oliver wants to be, is a vigilante. And Oliver warns that Ray isn't ready to take on a killer, which, I mean, I wouldn't say that that's not true because of his awesome fight and save that he gave Barry in the Flash. That was awesome. However, as Felicity said, Darling City is a lot more dangerous than Central City. Central City is dangerous, but that's more of like it's going to become more dangerous. Like, Starling City is very dangerous, but Central City is, not as dangerous. So, eventually it will be, though. So, basically, however, Ray points out that as a man of science, he's best suited to deal with a radiation-based villain, and Oliver reluctantly agrees, but makes Ray promise that he'll escape if he gets in over his head. Because he's worried that Ray doesn't exactly know what he's doing, and I'd have to agree. I don't know if Ray knows what he's doing, because basically the Atom flies to the planet, lands on the roof, goes inside, the lights go out, and Simmons blasts him back with a plasma bolt. The Atom returns fire, but only powers Simmons up, and he hits the Atom repeatedly, chokes him with a chain, and before Simmons can finish him off, the Atom flies down and then crashes into an alley. So clearly he didn't know what he was doing. And Ray returns to Palmer Technologies and confirms that he is essentially unharmed and that he's okay, and Oliver and Diggle warn that he was lucky to get out alive, and Oliver says that he needs to trust his instincts instead of his tech because he doesn't know exactly what he's doing and that he could get himself killed. And I like what Oliver says to him, that you can't let the suit power you. You have to be you can't let the suit do what it wants to do. You have to do what you want to do inside the suit. And I like that Oliver said that because it's true with the suit, definitely. And while I think Ray is good at what he's doing, he's just really unexperienced. He's not as experienced to say Oliver or Barry, and I think Oliver needs to train him more, definitely. So, back to 5 years ago, Oliver returns to the safe house and tells Mazeo and Tatsu what he's learned, and Mazeo warns that Shreve has too many men for them to escape Hong Kong, and Oliver suggests that they steal the vaccine from Shreve. So the guards return Roy to his cell, and a prisoner comes at him with a knife. Another one attacks and knocks out the guards, and more prisoners move in. Roy takes him on. One of them slashes him across the back, and despite that, Roy knocks him out. More guards are in and orders Roy down, and Roy just seems to be invincible, and it's awesome to see here. I thought this was just such an awesome scene. I loved it. So Lance and his men are searching Oliver's apartment. When Pike comes in, he warns Lance that the mayor is wondering why Lance is going after Oliver when they have Roy in custody, which honestly doesn't make sense. Why go after Oliver? I understand he doesn't really believe Oliver, but it has nothing to do with this. If Oliver's not the Arrow, why the hell are you going after Oliver? So Pike tells his friend not to throw away his life on a personal vendetta and leaves, and I thought that was a really good scene. Thea basically tells Lance that he won't find anything there, and Lance says that Oliver's letting Roy rot in prison for his crimes. Lance knows that Oliver, is the Arrow. He's not buying that Roy's the Arrow, and the prison calls to tell Lance what happened, and he tells Thea that Roy was attacked, and he warns that it won't be the last time, and Roy's death will be on Oliver as well. And again, I know a lot of people don't like, Lance's character, but again, this all is because of just all the lies he's been taught, all the lies and everything that people didn't tell him. It's all just building up. And again, as I said, this season's about sacrifice and why you shouldn't lie. And I thought that was a really great thing that this episode showed. I definitely enjoyed that, and I thought that was really well done. So, at Palmer Technology, Ray reviews the data on Simmons that his suit recorded, and he explains how Simmons absorbed his energy and proposes that they tap into the city power grid and see where he's getting his extra energy. And Thea arrives and tells him about the attack on Roy, and Oliver prepares to break him out, and Diggle stops him, and they get into like a bit of a huge fight here. I thought this was actually really interesting. And I mean, I understand Diggle just wants him to be safe and everything, but Oliver's got to do what he has to do. If he wants to break out Roy out of prison, he has to do that. And Diggle stops him, warns that he'll end up in a cell next to Roy, and it's a terrible thing what he wants to do. And he says that Oliver needs to stay put and throttle back before they lose everything. And Oliver says that he's already lost everything. He's not going to lose Roy, and walks out. And I thought that was a really good scene because honestly, Oliver has lost everything. Think of everything Oliver's lost in the past few seasons. His mother, his best friend, even though, John is really his best friend right now. Even though John's really his best friend, Tommy was his best friend. He's lost Tommy, he's lost Moira, he's lost Sarah, his lover. He's lost a lot of people, and he's not going to lose his partner in crime. He's just not going to do that. I mean, they work so well together that he's not going to let Roy die, and I love seeing that from Oliver. And it just shows how selfless he really is. And yeah, it's sort of a problem, but I mean, he's a vigilante. That's what they do. That's what a good vigilante is. A good vigilante doesn't give a shit about themselves. They give a shit about who to protect and who to save, and I love that about Oliver. So Felicity goes after Oliver, who says that, and I like what Felicity tells him. I do agree what she's saying here, that he can't just do nothing. And she understands that he's having trouble relying on others and figures that there's more going on. But I like what Felicity says. That honestly, she tells him the heartbreaking truth that even if he rescues Roy or not, there is still no more Arrow. And I don't know if that's true. I think for right now, there's no more Arrow, but I definitely feel like the Arrow could somehow come back. And Oliver admits that he doesn't know who he is, and Felicity says that he's the man that, and it seemed like she's about to tell him that she's in love with him, but she tells him that she believes in, and I really love the tension between Felicity and Oliver. You can tell that she really loves him, but she doesn't want to tell him right now because he's going through so much, and we know the Felicity sex scene is happening, which I'm looking forward to. I can't wait to see when that happens, but I'm pretty sure that Felicity and Ray are going to break up. I really can already tell. So Ray texts to say that the transponder is ready and needs her help, and she tells Oliver to let them handle it, and that basically they'll do it on their own. So Mazeo leads Tattoo and Oliver to a secret army base, and they capture one soldier. Oliver interrogates him and locates the vaccine, then renders the man unconscious, and they go to a lab, and Oliver gets the vaccine as men approach the hallway. The trio gets out just in time, and basically Lance then visits Roy in his cell and says that he knows that if Roy became obsessed with the Arrow, that he would come to a bad end, and he insists that he's trying to save Roy. And Roy tells him that he killed Patrol Officer Gabe Vincent, and Lance realizes that he can't get through to Roy and leaves. And I like that Roy's not really talking because, of course, Roy can't really say anything because he's not really the Arrow. And I think Lance is just really confused at this point. It's really pissing him off, and he's just really confused. So Felicity goes to a power station to upload the transponder, and a security guard comes over, and Felicity asks him to help her. She wonders why he's wearing sunglasses, and basically Simmons removes them as the lights go out. His eyes start glowing, and that was so awesome. I felt like I was watching The Flash here. This was just awesome. So at Power Technologies, Ray gets a fix on Simmons. They realize that he's at the power station. Ray calls, and Simmons answers. He boosts that he can easily defeat the Am suit, hangs up, and Felicity hits a steam valve. She breaks free and runs out, and Ray tells Oliver that he can't make it to the power station in time, but the Atom can fly. Oliver warns him that he needs more than just his tech, and Ray agrees that they need Oliver's instincts. He dons his suit, flies to the power station, and Oliver links in and takes control of the suit by remotes. And Simmons finds Felicity, prepares to kill her. The Atom sets out, opens fire, and this is just such an awesome scene. Felicity refuses to leave the Atom alone, but he tells her to go. Oliver punches Simmons via the suit, dodging his blows, and Simmons manages to tag him, serving the transmitter. Simmons pressures his attack, and Oliver tells the Atom to fight back, reminds him that he put himself in harm's way to save Felicity, and we start to see that he is actually becoming very good at what he's doing. And the Atom blocks Simmons' eyes as he unleashes a blast and then punches him unconscious, and again, you can really see that Ray is starting to see, how to be a good vigilante and how to save people, which I really love seeing. It's going to take him a while, but I definitely enjoyed that. So at Iron Heights, Roy and the other prisoners are transferred as another prisoner comes at him, and a guard drags Roy's side, stabs him in the stomach, the killer runs off, Roy collapses to the floor, subsequently to his death, and it seemed like he was dead, and basically Oliver returns to his apartment and finds Lance there with Thea. They're very upset, and she talks about how Roy was killed an hour ago and tells Oliver that it's his fault as he walks out, and you just see this look on Oliver's face. He's completely devastated. I mean, after everything he's been through, after all he's trying to do, this was like the worst thing to happen. I mean, he wanted to save Roy, and how can he save Roy if he's dead? However, there's more to this, which I thought was genius, because basically Oliver goes to Lair, looks through the wreckage for Roy's things, and Felicity and Diggle come over, and Oliver says he shouldn't have listened to either of them. Diggle says that they know he may never forgive them, and he thinks they're talking about just like what happened, everything. But they talk to him about, we see a flashback to the plan and how this was all Roy's plan all along, and we see that Roy actually faked his death. That was part of the plan. He comes in and Roy says that it was his idea and explains that the guard was one of Lila's Argus freelancers, and he knows how to stab people to make it convincing and treat the blade with a drug to feign death, and now everyone believes that the arrow is... So basically, it did nothing. When he was stabbed, it did nothing to him, and basically, now everyone thinks that the arrow is dead and Oliver's innocent, and honestly, it's a genius plan what Roy has done. I love that Roy's done this for Oliver, but Oliver wonders what happens to Roy Harper if everyone thinks he's dead. Like, what is his plan? Now, this has been going on for a while now, and this episode pretty much confirmed that Colton Haynes is leaving the show. He's leaving the main cast, and How do I feel about this? I feel like it's time, definitely. I mean, he's had so much focus this season, and we've had so much to do with Roy that I feel like now, yeah, it is the time for him to leave. And now that Ray's there, I definitely feel like Ray is going to become the new Arsenal, which I think is awesome if they do that. I think it's going to be awesome to see what happens there, and basically Roy prepares to leave town, asks him to tell Thea what happened. He assures his friends that he's starting a new life, and Roy thanks Oliver, who thanks him for. And this was the scene that Stephen Amell was talking about. If you guys remember, Stephen Amell talked about how there's a scene in the 19th episode that is one of the most emotional scenes I've ever done. And this whole scene was just amazing. It really just felt like just a goodbye to Roy. Now, I did hear we might see Roy for one more episode. I'm thinking probably the finale, and he might pop up on the Flash here and there, but he's not going to be a main character anymore, which I'm honestly fine with. I mean, now that we have Ray Palmer and we have all the characters really playing a huge role in the show, I'm fine with Roy, maybe being demoted. I'm fine with that. I mean, everyone's had amazing stuff this season that I'm fine with Roy. I think he's had enough this season. I think that, we've seen a great arc from him, and I'm going to miss his character, obviously, but I'm sure he'll make appearances here and there, but he just wants to focus on other things. And I think that's good. I mean, at first, he was on Teen Wolf, and he left Teen Wolf, he went on to Arrow. So maybe Jackson will come back on Teen Wolf. That could be a possibility. I don't know. But that could be really cool if that happens. But Roy leaving, I thought, was really well done. Basically, Roy thanks Oliver, who thanks him for what he did, and he drives off, and Oliver admits that he needs to learn how to let people help him, and Felicity says that he needs to remember that people do love him, and it really just sums up this episode that, they're all there for him, and that they were all there to help Oliver. This was all their plan to save Oliver, and they saved his ass, and, basically, she leaves with Ray, and I thought that was a great scene, because, Oliver can see that there are people that want to help him, even though he doesn't want people to help him, their plans can actually work out really well. This is something that Oliver would have never thought of, and their plan just honestly was so genius, and I love it, and it was awesome. So back to 5 years ago, back in the safe house, Mazeo says that there's just enough inoculation for 4 of them. Oliver tells them to administer it themselves, and the woman reveals the eye touch he stole from the lab. It is Shree's plans to distribute the airborne virus. He's going to use it to stop them, and Tatsu insists that they'll help him to set an example to Akio, and when Oliver objects, Tatsu tells Oliver that he needs to learn how to let people help him. That shows right there how Oliver still didn't let people help him back then. I love that. I love the way they're connecting the flashbacks to what's going on in real life. Just by that line, I love that. So Ray takes Simmons to Central City, dubs him Deathbolt, and Cisco, we saw Cisco in this episode, which I loved seeing Cisco. This just makes me think that now we're just going to casually see people from The Flash on the show, which if that's true, that's awesome. Again, I love seeing Ray and Cisco work together. I love seeing it on All-Star Team Up, so to see that again here was just a great bonus. I love that. So Cisco locks him up in the pipeline, and Cisco checks the records and discovers that Simmons wasn't in Central City on the night of the dark matter explosion. So somehow he's become a metahuman in some other manner. So is Roz turning people into metahumans? That could be a possibility. I definitely feel like there's more going on here. I don't know what's going on, but I kind of feel like they need to get Barry involved. That might be the best thing to do. Get Barry involved, get Cisco. I feel like Cisco is going to be on the show now. I really do feel like he's going to be, not like a major role, but I feel like he's going to be on the show here and there, and if that's true, I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen, because, again, how can you have this metahuman there if he's not from Central City? That doesn't make sense, so I'm interested in seeing if we're going to find out more about that. So Thea's at her apartment looking at photos of Roy and her together, and you see that it's really bittersweet for her. She knows that Roy is doing a good thing, but she's sad to say goodbye to him, obviously. And of course, they had that whole plan to move in together and, to run away together, and that can't happen now. And I kind of thought where we were going is that maybe Thea would follow Roy, but before that happened, she pours herself another glass of wine, turns to find Roz in her apartment. He tells her that Oliver will soon be the demon's head once he gave Oliver significant motivation, because now Oliver's plan is, backfired, and Thea throws a knife at Roz, and this was awesome. We've never seen Thea really kick ass, which I thought was awesome to watch here. I mean, just showing her growth from when Oliver was training her to now was just awesome. Just seeing Roy leave has made her stronger, and Thea throws a knife at Roz. He easily catches it. She attacks him. Roz subdues her despite her best efforts, runs her through with his sword, and that's how the episode ends. So we already saw last week that Thea is going to be fine. She's going into the Lazarus Pit next week, which is going to be awesome to see. But what an amazing episode this was. It was the perfect send-off to Roy's character. I definitely feel like we're going to get at least one more episode with Roy, but I definitely feel like that's the end of Roy being a main character. I thought they handled it really well. I can see if you guys are upset that Roy's not a main character anymore, but honestly, I think they handled it really well. And honestly, it was time to get rid of a character. And when you have the same, cast for 3 seasons, it might be time to demote one character or two. So I like that they did that here, and I thought that was really good. Um, let's talk about Oliver. What is Oliver gonna do now? Now that is he gonna let people help him now? I don't really know what he's gonna do with Roz, because obviously Roz knows what Oliver's doing, and he's one step ahead of him. So what is he going to do about Roz? Again, as I said before, the only way to stop Roz is to kill him. And now that he has Ray and Felicity and Diggle, maybe even Cisco on his side, I think it's going to be possible to just, kill him. I think they're going to be able to do it. And I think, Oliver just needs to have that confidence in himself that he needs to do that. And now that he knows that people are helping him, I feel like Oliver's going to be a lot more confident about this now. So we'll see what happens there. As far as Felicity goes, I really like the way they're setting up Felicity. They're very subtly setting it up. They're not like throwing in her face, oh my god, Felicity, Felicity, Felicity. Like, they're not throwing in her face. I've said it before, I love Felicity. Who doesn't love Felicity? Who doesn't want Felicity and Oliver together? They're perfect together. They have amazing chemistry. I'd love to see them together by the end of the season, and I definitely feel like that's what's going to happen. I think Felicity and Ray, I think they're going to break up, definitely. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about this whole metahuman thing. Are we going to find out what's going on there? Because clearly there are metahumans, but they're not from Central City. So if they're not from Central City, who would have done this? Maybe Wells created metahumans and put them all over the world, possibly. That could be a possibility. I'm not really sure. I'm really not sure, guys. What do you think? How would you connect that? Because I don't understand. I honestly don't really know how to connect that, which I find very interesting. I guess the other question I have is what's gonna happen now with Thea? Is Oliver gonna be able to save her? I'm pretty sure she's gonna be saved. We'll see what happens there overall. But guys, I cannot wait for. Also, do you love Ray team up with Oliver? I think it's awesome. I think yeah, he needs to be a little more experienced at what he's doing, and he's not as strong as Oliver. But I feel like a matter of time, this is gonna be a permanent position now. I'm gonna say it now. I think this is going to be a permanent position, and I think basically what's going to happen now is that they're going to work together. They're going to basically take down as many people as they can, and until they're going to work together now, which I think is awesome. And I love seeing Ray join, because honestly, after seeing his awesome thing with Barry, he really is badass at what he does, and he's doing a great job. And I think it's just a matter of time before he becomes as good as the Arrow, and I can't wait to see what happens there. But overall, guys, this is my review. By far, best episode of the season. Absolutely love this episode. They are improving within every episode, and I love that. Even the flashbacks are interesting. Let me know if you guys saw this episode. Also, Lance. Let's talk about Lance. Is Lance going to find out what's really going on here? I mean, I'm pretty sure he does know, but he's so confused that I really would love for Oliver to just explain to him what's going on. I understand get Oliver arrested, but would that really backfire now? I mean, now they know the Arrow's gone. What's Lance going to do? I feel like if Oliver tells him, maybe Lance will finally, drop it. I understand Lance is really pissed right now. I do understand that, but we'll see what happens. I'm really not sure what's going to happen between Lance and, Lance and Oliver, how that's all going to work out. I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen there. But that's it for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys, and let me know what you guys saw this episode. Best episode of the season by far. And sorry this review was up later. I was really tired. I ended up falling asleep. I was watching a movie. I ended up falling asleep and didn't get a chance to watch Arrow. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for The Americans. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.